So this video is for those who are just starting off and feeling like their cardio sucks. Spoiler alert, your cardio doesn't suck. It's just that your technique sucks and you probably need to develop your energy management a little bit better. The whole point of technique is to do the task with as little effort as possible. And that takes time to develop. When you're first starting off, you're throwing punches, you're tense, you don't know which muscles are doing what, so you basically have all of your muscles doing a bunch of things that they don't need to be doing. When we're throwing a punch, for example, the point of maximum output is that split second when impact is made. And that takes some developing in order to get it right. The timing needs to be right. The awareness, the muscular awareness needs to be right. You need to know exactly which muscle is doing what. The allocation of the energy needs to be right. A lot of the punches, when we're throwing punches, are coming from the ground. They're coming from our legs. And the legs and the core, which is a larger muscle group, is doing the bulk of the work and generating the force. And a lot of times we burn ourselves out because we put too much task on a smaller muscle group. And technique helps you develop that. Technique teaches you how to throw it properly with the least amount of effort, how to flow and be relaxed when you're throwing your punches and throwing your kicks. Also, energy management is an important skill that you will end up having to develop in order to feel like you have the gas tank to make it through a sparring session, to make it through a roll session, or whatever it is that you're training in. And energy management is one of those things that takes a while to develop. It's crazy when a lot of times us as instructors, when we're going with beginners or we're going with people with less experience than us, I know in their mind it seems like, wow, this person must be in awesome shape. But I'm here to tell you that a lot of times we're in way worse shape than the people that we're teaching are in. A lot of our students, a lot of the people who we instruct, and a lot of people who we coach are in a lot better shape than we are. But we just know where to spend our energy, where to sit back, where to go all in, how to manage our energy and how to properly allocate our energy. So the two things that are making you feel like you're out of shape and like your cardio sucks are going to be technique and energy management. Both are things that take a little bit of time to develop, but rest assured it'll come and you'll get better at it. And these are all things that we're constantly working on, we're constantly trying to improve on. But don't feel like your energy sucks. We see it a lot of times, especially those folks who step on the mat from the first time and they are coming from a fitness background, they played sports, they're generally in really good shape. And like I said, a lot of times those people are in better shape than the actual coaches that are teaching and instructing them. But they do not have the technique in order to properly allocate the energy, so they end up doing a lot of extra things that burn their gas tank. I see it all the time. Guys are like, oh my God, I can't even make it through a round. Well, you can't make it through the round because your stance is draining so much energy out of you. And I'm always talking about energy management. The way that my classes are set up is to really drive the whole energy management lesson home so that my students can get it. Your stance, when we're talking about kickboxing and boxing, your stance needs to be like neutral in a car. If I turn my car on and leave it running, and it's not going anywhere, the engine is running, it's in neutral, but it's not going anywhere, that car will probably run for a week without turning off. But as soon as we go somewhere, that's when the gas starts to get spent. That's when the energy starts to get used. And we're just like that. But a lot of times when you don't know how to find that relaxed state in your stance ends up burning way more energy than what it needs to. So when we're talking about our stance, and I'm just using kickboxing and boxing as an example, when we're talking about our stance, we have to, the goal is relaxed. The goal is try to be as relaxed as possible. And we're always looking for ways to relax. And then a lot of it comes from knowing when we're in danger, knowing when we're in range and out of range. So using kickboxing as an example, let's say that we're standing in front of each other, we're sparring. If I take one nice step back to where you can't reach me, then I can recharge. And let's say that I want to recharge while we're in the middle of a sparring session. All I need to do is keep myself out of range. Now, the trick is, and the issue comes, and this is where it's a little bit different than other sports. Because if I'm going on a run, I can coast. I get to choose when I'm going all out or falling back and relaxing. But the issue comes up when we have a sparring partner or an opponent that also has a say-so in the tempo and the intensity of the session. We don't get to choose. There's a lot of factors that are outside of our control when we're talking about sparring, when we're talking about active combat sports. So if that person is attacking, I need to be able to fight back 100%. And then the windows of opportunity to rest are just not as apparent as they would be if you are just doing some sort of a solo exercise or workout. And that's where the mat awareness, the experience comes in, where you know how to rest. Going back to the kickboxing, using that as an example, you can do things like step out of range to where they can't hit you, or even tie them up and rest on and take a couple of breaths there. If we're talking about wrestling and jiu-jitsu, we can hold them in our guard and take a few breaths. If we're on top, we can secure the position, take a few breaths. But also understanding where we are. So for example, if we're in danger, or if they're in attack mode and we're defending, we have to be wise enough to know that, hey, for example, if they have a choke on, I need to give defending this choke 100% of my attention and my energy, because the consequences of this choke sinking in is I'm done. So I need to go ahead and make sure that even it's going to be worth it for me to empty my gas tank if that means I'm going to survive the match. A lot of times when we're talking about wrestling or jiu-jitsu, the advantage or I guess a lot of the fight is won in the scramble. So for example, we're fighting for position. And this is where I see in jiu-jitsu, using jiu-jitsu as an example, this is where I see a lot of mistakes happen with folks with less experience. So let's say that you have somebody passing your guard, and the result of them passing your guard is going to be they'll be in side control or maybe even mount. You have to think of it this way. If I give up now in this scramble, I'm going to have to fight twice as hard to get out of a mount or out of side control. So it's worth it for me to empty my gas tank and win this exchange, because my relief is on the other side of me winning the exchange and not on the other side of me allowing them to win the exchange. So that's where experience comes in, and you say, okay, if I need to empty my gas tank here, that I need to do that. But let's say you have them in a secure position and you have control, that's where you can rest. So understanding the hierarchy in jiu-jitsu, understanding the hierarchy of position, understanding the consequences of winning and losing a scramble, that's going to give you the answer that you're looking for as far as how much energy you need to be spending. When we're talking about kickboxing or boxing, understanding range, understanding that if I'm standing too close, they can't hit me. Because when we're talking about range, you have two options. You can step away or you can step inside. Both of those options, your opponent can hit you. And if you're in a situation where you need to take a break, where you need to take a couple of breaths of fresh air, you might need to go inside and tie them up, or step away and circle and stay out of range so you can take those few breaths of air and charge. But it all comes from the experience, and it all comes from awareness and wisdom of knowing when and where you need to spend your energy. So, two things. If you are feeling like your cardio sucks, it doesn't. And secondly, it's all in your technique. That means offensively, you're doing things in the most efficient way. You're using the right muscle groups to do the task. You understand how to relax. And defensively, you know when you need to close the distance and tie up or step out of range. So it's not that your cardio sucks, it's just that you need to figure out when and where to use your energy. It's either your technique offensively, and defensively, it's where you're allocating your energy. So keep that in mind. All right, guys, I gotta run. Coach Sully, Reps and Sweat, Martial Arts and Fitness. This was Matt Chat.